G'day ladies and gents, and welcome to War Thunder with Mags, and welcome aboard the Yak-9b. Today's video is probably going to be the shortest and fastest aircraft review you will ever see on this channel, and that is mainly because there is almost nothing to say about the aircraft in question. The Yak-9b was added in patch 1.53. It is, well, for the most part, just another Yak variant in amongst all of the other Yak variants we already have. This particular one does have one unique feature about it. It's a fighter bomber. The Yak-9b features an internal bomb bay that sits just behind the air intake for the radiators, just underneath, and extends all the way into the back of the actual cockpit behind the pilot himself. In fact, you can see there the 4 100 kilo bombs that this aircraft can carry. It actually had two configurations. It could carry 4 100 kilo bombs into combat. They were Fab 100s, or it could carry 4 PTA-B cassettes, each with 32 1.5 kilogram bomblets. The PTA-B cassettes were anti-tank aviation bombs developed by the Soviets in World War II. They are a cluster munition. Each cassette consisted of a number of 1.5 kilogram explosive charges. Upon the cassettes released from the aircraft, they would then split open mid-flight, spreading these 1.5 kilogram shaped bombs over an area that the enemy tanks that were being targeted would be in. These munitions would then land over the entire surface of the tank, detonating. They proved to be very effective when they were used. They were actually very dangerous. Just getting them on target was an extreme problem. Unfortunately, it appears in War Thunder that we only get access to the Fab 100 bombs. We don't get access to the cassettes at all. So why bring up the cassettes? Well, they are the one thing that would have made this plane interesting and unique. Without them, it's basically not effective. Now, I want you to watch how these bombs deploy right here, because the Yak-9b is actually very well modelled in this regard. It has all the problems of the real Yak. So, did you see the issue right there? Let's watch these bombs release in slow motion. The first issue the Yak-9b in War Thunder has is actually an issue that the aircraft had in real life too. It's the vertical bomb bay. All 4 bombs are stored upright behind the pilot, and they drop straight out of the bottom of the plane, down on the targets beneath them. Why is that a problem? Well, deploying bombs in that manner means that the bombs will start spiraling as soon as they leave the bottom of the aircraft. Basically, they won't keep themselves level in flight. They're going to drift and move as they fall, and they in fact do out of the bottom of the Yak-9b. This is incredibly well modelled. But that means you can't dive bomb with them. If you release them in a dive, they're not going to go anywhere near where you would expect them to go. Now, the second problem, of course, is the bombs themselves. The Fab 100s. Well, none of the bombs in War Thunder actually have... They all have the explosive potential that they should have, but they don't have the blast radius. This means you need to be very accurate with these bombs. With something like a 100 kilo bomb, even taking out something like an armoured car, you can see I recorded 3 damaging hits there, but no actual vehicles destroyed. If I wanted to destroy one of those vehicles, I would need to land that 100 kilo bomb almost directly on top of it in order to be able to score the kill. And exactly the same thing happens in War Thunder Ground Forces if you're thinking about using the Yak-9b to deploy there. Unless you happen to get the bomb with pinpoint accuracy right on top of the target, it's not going to do damage. Now, getting that accuracy is incredibly hard in the Yak-9b, and this is again something that is actually accurate to real life. The Yak-9b was actually not a particularly effective aircraft in doing its job. It was most certainly not as good as any of the other dedicated ground attackers or bombers the Soviets had available. The major problem with the Yak-9b was quite simply that it had no aiming equipment. It had no targeting equipment on it at all, not even a simple bomb sight. The pilot literally opened the canopy and looked out the side at where the tanks were, and then released the bombs when he thought he was close enough. The sole upside to the Yak-9b's design is when those 4 bombs were released, it's a Yak fighter. It's slightly heavier and as a result slightly slower and slightly less manoeuvrable than the standard Yak-9 that's already in the tree, but not by much. It just feels a little weightier in the belly more than anything else. But it's still a Yak fighter, and it's still very good. Its overall performance is not a huge amount different to the standard Yak-9 that you've already got. I think if the PTAB cassettes were actually made available to the Yak-9b, it would be a hell of a lot more interesting aircraft. That bomb bay would really come into its own. But until then, a 4-shot 100 kilogram maximum bomb bay, 400 kilograms of explosives that you can't dive bomb due to the way the bomb bay actually operates, and that you can't aim because the aircraft itself is actually equipped with no targeting equipment for its own bombs of any way, shape or form. The bomb bay is a novelty. The plane itself is very good. As I said, it's a Yak fighter. It works really well in combat. But the bomb bay in the back it's an option that you can use or not. The only real good news about that bomb bay is there's nothing to unlock in order to make it work. From the moment you get access to this plane, you have the option between no bombs, 2 bombs, and 4 bombs. You don't need to unlock anything to access the ordnance. In fact, that is probably the most effective way I found to actually fly this thing in realistic battle, at least. I flew it into combat with no bombs at all, and just pretended it was just a normal Yak fighter, just another Yak-9 in the battle. Towards the end of the battle, if somebody needed to hit ground targets, I returned to base, landed, loaded the 4 100s on board, and then set the timers on those bombs to about 5 seconds. When I came back to the ground targets, releasing the bombs at under 10 feet, so that they landed pinpoint on top of the targets that I was trying to bomb, but had a long enough fuse on them that I could get a big enough distance away from the target before they detonated to not blow my plane up at the same time. Seemed to be the best way to use this thing. And unfortunately that's why this is going to be such a short review, as once you take the bombs away from the aircraft, this is just the standard Yak-9 that I've already done a review on. Maybe slightly heavier, but not enough to really affect its flight performance. It's extremely dangerous. Its stock grind is quite easy. With just 1 or 2 air kills and maybe a couple of ground kills, you should have more than enough RP earned on this aircraft to unlock all of the Tech 1 modifications and most of the Tech 2. Although those first couple of flights, the aircraft's performance will feel rather lacking. This is fairly normal for Yak aircraft. However, once you've upgraded those ammunition belts and got access to the engine modification, which shouldn't take any more than 4 or 5 matches with some careful aiming and some careful planning, it's just a Yak-9. So, that's all I have really to say about the aircraft. There was just one extra thing I wanted to put on the end of this. I know a lot of people have reported frame rate drops in War Thunder Realistic Battle Air Forces around the town on the coast on the Crimps map. And I may have actually found out why. I don't recall the buildings in the town actually being destructible, but apparently now they are. The animation for them is fairly simple. The building just sort of lifts on an angle and sinks into the terrain, as you can see, but I'm curious on whether or not the entire town is actually destructible now. I actually haven't had a chance to check this yet at this time, so if anybody wants to take the time to fly it on the Crimps map and basically bomb the crap out of the city and let me know the results, I'd love to find out. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the video. Click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.